really important to, let's see if I have time. Yep, I am. Okay, so software patents. There are two sides to this whole thing. Software patents, okay? And some people like them, some people don't. How many people like software patents, the concept of them? Okay, how many people do not like the idea of software patents? Okay, so other people aren't quite sure. But anyway, usually it's a much larger, broader sort of, people really hate them or they like them. Okay, so on one hand, if you're a startup company and you want to get some funding, you need to have some kind of defendable position. And if you're a software company, but a software startup, if you don't have some kind of patent going on, they're probably not going to fund you because you have to be able to defend your position. And if they're looking for technology as the defense and not just your team, okay, if your team is really strong, I got the former head of this company and the former head of this one, they might fund you. But boy, if you're a startup and it's a technology thing and you don't have some kind of patent pending, they're probably not going to fund you because they're going to say, what's to stop XYZ from looking at your stuff? Apple probably, right? Or Microsoft, We used to have these two, here's the arguments. We used to have two arguments when we didn't have patents. They'd say, okay, so you got this really cool idea, right? Okay, so if it's so cool, why isn't Microsoft doing it, right? So we say, well, maybe they just haven't gotten around to it. Well, if they do get around to it, how are you going to stop them, right? See, because then they're going to take this, right? So it's and patents are the answer to that. So the answer is, well, they couldn't stop us because we have this thing and, it'll protect us. By the way, we were so naive. We had no idea what the cost was of defending a patent. And we're going to look at that shortly, the millions of dollars it takes for you to defend a patent. We're going to look at that in a little bit. So, but that's, anyway, you have to have that checkbox on number 2 there. It's very important if you're trying to get funding. People love to have that. And by the way, your patent doesn't have to be embodiable. Okay, you could describe a patent that says, given that there is a 64-qubit, quantum computer, that's using all the resources of the sun to do the following things, I could do this. And that's a perfectly valid patent. No problem. It's okay.
It just has to be a discovery. It doesn't have to be realized.
You don't have to embody it. Yeah, you can just discover that theoretically, if everything was right and the math looks right and the physics looks right, you're not allowed to patent things that are physically impossible. If something's deemed to be, if there's a mathematics that shows, physics mathematics that shows you cannot do it, I want to patent a unipole magnet, right? A big one, a really big unipole magnet. It's north only. You're not going to get that patent. They're just not going to give it to you. Yeah. So, alrighty. On the other hand, software patents are kind of the antithesis of the original purpose of patents. The original purpose of patents was to really make things so that you could build on stuff and the whole universe would move forward. And instead, it's a big, big, big landmine of problems for especially larger companies that have money. The smaller ones, smaller ones it's hard too until they get big. Then they have the same problem. So that's the bad part about software patents. So.
That's because knowledge of the universe of software patents is almost impenetrable, right? In other words, if you had...
Absolutely. There's millions. How would you possibly be able to know? That's what you're saying, right? I mean, you just can't have that knowledge. And we're going to get into that a little bit about prior art coming up, too. There's some real issues. They have a new thing called fast track that sounds really appealing. It's like, ooh, I could fast track my patent and I can get it done really quick. It's like, yeah, but guess what? There's some catches. There's always a catch, So there's some catches to that, and we're going to talk about that too. Almost everything's got a catch, So, all right, IP drives the U.S. economic growth a lot. $5 trillion is what they're thinking it's contributing to the economy. That's huge. 40 million jobs. It's a huge, huge deal. If Microsoft were to completely stop selling anything whatsoever and provide zero services, except they keep their lawyers. They have to keep them. If that's all they did, was kept their lawyers, they'd have several $1 billion a year coming in from patents on the mobile devices. Microsoft owns a ton of key patents on mobile devices, and it's billions a year that they receive in money from that. Kept in check by the huge number of lawyers they have in their incredibly deep pockets. Okay, so it's a real big deal. The patents are, it says here the average price of these patents that got sold was 200-something thousand. That's fairly close to what a patent will, if you sell a patent, you'll get somewhere between 150 and 200,000 on average. It turned out that multiple millions is not the typical, although I thought that was true, because we had some good luck that way. And since we've been brokering patents, every one of the inventors we've encountered has thought that their patent was really important. And we had one that said that they had a patent that was worth $1 trillion. And so Jennifer said, well, who do you think is going to buy it? And they didn't really have a big long list of people with $1 trillion to buy their patent, but they said it was definitely worth it. So you do have to kind of think about that a little bit. But the average is somewhere around 200,000.
It wouldn't have been cold fusion from Utah, would it?
No, I know it. Yeah, cold fusion. Yeah, that almost made it, didn't it? Yeah. All right, average patent wait time, it says 34 months. That's pretty close. When they say wait time, they don't mean wait time till you get it granted. They mean wait time until the patent office bothers to knock on your door and say, we bothered to look at this today, and now we have some questions. And their questions, I always ask for a copy of all those office actions, I think they call it. I get copies of these office actions, just because I want to see what they're saying, It's like, is it something I could just, is it something I could just read and I could just answer it? The answer is no, because they're really esoteric. I mean, they're really, really esoteric stuff when they send it to you. And they say, well, in the case of blah, blah, blah versus blah, 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 with this particular patent, they mention this particular phrase. Is that not the same as your phrase where they say blah, blah, blah? And you're like, well, no, because ours doesn't have a semicolon and theirs does. And they're like, oh, yeah, good. But, I mean, it's really esoteric stuff, and you could not answer it. One of the patents that I have is with my brother, and so I send him back and forth the correspondence, and he's always amazed at what they're talking about, because it has nothing to do with anything that we thought we wrote for the patent. But it's very critical for the patent office. And there's a thing called a fast track you can do. You can pay the patent office extra money. How much is it? Like some
$2,500 something.
$2,500,
Yeah.
unless you're over 72 or 75 years old, in which case you get it for free or something. But you can pay them extra money, and they'll agree to look at your patent within 12 months. And apparently they've been looking at them on the average of about 6 months right now, I was told. It's been pretty efficient. Okay, but there's some burden on you when you do that. And the burden is that you have to legally say that you have already looked everywhere to see if there's prior art, okay? And you have to sign an affidavit that says, I have already looked and there is no prior art, okay? I mean, I've looked everywhere, I've exhausted my looking. Where the normal way you do a patent is that simply in your own experience, do you know of prior art, okay? And if you don't know it if you don't know it that there's prior art, you're okay in a normal 34-month deal. But if you do the fast track, you have to be stipulating that you looked everywhere and you couldn't find it. And then later on, if your patent is challenged, okay, part of the challenge can now be your affidavit that you looked. And that can be part of the challenge, when you're trying to...
Is there any boundary for looking everywhere?
No, well, it's unknown. The law on that's unknown. Right? That's all new stuff. And the law on it's very, very unknown. He's referring to her. She's a patent attorney, so she knows some of these things. Has experienced them. It's very, very unknown, but what is known is it opens up a whole new realm of attack for your patent that doesn't exist during the 34-month one. So you've opened up, you've got your patent done earlier, which is really cool, but now, yeah, right, but now you've opened up this huge legal possibility.
But you paid for it.
And you paid for it too, And, yeah. Oh, another little statistic, of companies that say they have a patent pending, 50% do not. Okay, 50%. So I always look them up. And someone says, oh, I got a patent pending. And it's like, really? I'd just love to see your application number, because I'd like to look that up. Oh, well, I don't really have that. I have an idea. Oh, great. But really they're, All right, so we have some patent law that's happened, going through here. There's all these cases. There's this rise of software patents. You'll see the third over there, rise of software patents. And then they have a thing called business method patents, which we've not attempted to do. We have one client, I think, that First Contact did one. I'm not quite sure how those business patents work. But the software patents kind of got on the rise back in 95 or so. 94, 95 is when they hit, because there was some ruling that showed that, yes, you could have software patents. And now there is some curtailing of that with some legal stuff that's happened. But here's the cool slide coming up. You'll like this one a lot. Okay. This is Number of patents granted. Oh boy, we are moving up. And then we level a little bit, but guess what doesn't level? Patent legal cases. No. So that just kind of tells you how exciting it can be in the patent business.
Well, one of the things is that 2009 through 2011, the patents the patents level off and the litigation goes up because when there is a recession,
Oh, 'cause they
companies
stop
stop filing them and they start looking for
That's
somebody
why
to
that's
sue.
there, because the government shut down for a while.
Yeah.
I see, okay. But anyway, it didn't shut down the legal cases.
No, the courts are still open.
Courts are still open, so interesting graph, I thought. Otherwise, it kind of matches a little bit, until that little inflection point, and then it doesn't. And that is a big, big problem. So I'll keep it on here for a minute. Check my time. All right, good. All right, so we have someone that we know, for instance, who had a patent, and he got this patent, and the priority date's 2006, okay? Totally cool patent, okay? What he thought of, he thought of this in 2005, okay? He thought in 2005, what if I gave every webmaster a little piece of code, okay? They could put on their website, and then people could then say if they liked that web page or not, okay? And if they did, then, if they did do that, then that data would come back to my server, and it would be aggregated, and I could display it, and do all these cool things, He's a guy that I knew, and he about 5 years ago, he came to me and said, do you think I should pursue this patent, because they want $800, and I'm reading this thing, and I'm like, oh my God, this looks like it might be like, to my opinion, I'm not a legal attorney, but it looked like kind of like a Facebooky looking thing, to me, right? It's called third-party buttons, I guess, the general thing. Like, this is really cool, and he said, well, I could sell it to these people, so I could license it, to Facebook, I could do all these things. And that's when we discovered that the word license means lawsuit. That's actually what happens. If you contact a company in general and you say, you're infringing on my patent, but it's okay. I just want you to license the use of it for some monetary amount. They will immediately do a declaratory judgment on you, and they will try to invalidate your patent. It will cost you millions of dollars. And we have some really good cases of that where this one guy that I know, I met, and he thought of a patent on emulating what a cell phone looks like, 100% emulation on a desktop. So you could then test all your cell phone stuff on your desktop. 100% emulator. He thought of that idea back like a long, long time ago, like in 2003 or something. He really thought this stuff through. It's amazing. And so he decided that he would go after Adobe. Right? You got to go after Adobe, which was a pretty good-sized company given he had 4 people. Right? So goes after Adobe, and of course immediately, they did the declaratory judgment thing. He discovered he's going to have to get a chunk of money. He found the legal team, and they're like, yeah, we'll be happy to do it. It'll be deferred $1 million plus, this percentage of any proceedings, and plus this, and plus that. Anyway, 5 years of his life, literally 5 years of his life, is Adobe bludgeoned him with continuous documents and depositions and all kinds of stuff. 5 years later, okay, he got $3 million from Adobe, 100% of which went to all the different people he owed money for fighting the lawsuit, 100%. So that's some of the exciting things that can happen with your patents, okay? So keep that in mind. We do all the time. We keep that in mind all the time.
So you're saying it's not always good to scratch that itch?
No. What you really have to do, it's a sad thing. Like the guy who's got this patent that I think anyhow is probably the Facebook thing. He really has to sell that to like Microsoft or sell it to someone who's not infringing. He can't sell it to anyone who's infringing. He's got to be very careful. So because that even just bringing the thing to him at all, even as a sale, they could construe it as an attack. So he has to be very, very careful. So he has to sell it like to Apple or sell it to Microsoft or sell it to Samsung. He's got to sell it to someone who doesn't have a third-party button, and then have them go after whoever it is that they want to go after, Twitter or Google. All these people have third-party buttons now. It's like Google Plus button. They all have them. And that's all that would have to happen. He would get probably, 3 or 4 cents on the dollar is what he's going to get. For whatever they're going to get, he's going to get that fraction. But it's still a lot of money if it worked out. So he's still doing that. It's been years he's still been working at it. It's very complex to do that kind of work. All right, mining for patents. So one of the things, recognizing when something might be patentable, and what we found with our teams of engineers is that when they're working on a problem And they literally can't find a solution. They can't find a canned solution from anywhere at all, and they're smart. We like to hire pretty smart people. And they can't find anything. That, for us, is a trigger for a possibility of a patent. Because they can't find a solution to this problem, which means that if they could solve it, we might have a patent on our hands. And then we really look at it carefully to see, can we figure out a solution to it? Okay? And that's when we have them look. We never have them look when they're just normally programming to see about, is this widgety thing I'm doing, is that going to violate a patent? We don't do that. We have a policy not to. We don't look. Okay? Because if we did have a policy that we looked, we would then be open for triple damages if someone came after us. So we don't look. But in this case, then we do, because they can't find it anywhere. And then we will do a bigger search, and we will not do the fast track, right? We will not do that. We will do the best search we can do as a company, and then we will then submit that patent. All right? So, what's prior art? Let's talk about that. Prior art's a very interesting thing. Prior art changed a little bit in its definition. Those changes happened in the last couple of years, but the biggest changes in prior art and patent applications and things like the patent process happened March something of last year. March something last year is when it occurred. And
16th.
March 16th, yeah, March 16th last year was a big change to the patent business in the U.S. The single largest change in the history of the patent office occurred last year, March 16th. And the big change is a thing called first to file. Okay? First to file means if you're the first one to file this thing, okay, and all the other things happen and the sky is blue and everything else works, okay, that's your patent, okay? And that wasn't the previous law. And let me tell you how the previous law worked out. A lot of people think Marconi, for instance, invented, right? The word invented the radio, right? Marconi invented the radio. The official patent does not belong to Marconi. Tesla sued him and was able to show that although Marconi filed first and Marconi pursued it with tons of money and drawings and lawyers and all the rest, and actually received the patent, actually got the patent, okay? Tesla said, I've got in my notebook that I did all this, a year or two before, whatever the time frame was, but he was able to prove to the patent office that he thought of it first, even though he didn't disclose it to anyone. I mean, there's no way Marconi could have known about it, okay? But he thought of it first, and that patent got transferred to him. So Tesla's the official inventor on the radio, not Marconi. So a lot of people don't even know that happened, but that's what occurred.
As of last March, it changed. It would
It would
now
be
be
Marconi.
Marconi.
Last March it changed, it would be Marconi, because a couple things happened. The other thing had to do with prior art. If you, as of March of this last year, if there was prior art, but you could not have known about it because they never disclosed it, they kept it under trade secret or something like that, okay?
Security clearance.
Yeah, security clearance, a good example. You can still get that patent, and I have a case of that myself. One of the patents that I applied for under the new ruling of the first to file was a patent that turns out to be very similar. I'm not saying it is similar, but very similar to the Chromecast little dongle thing. I have a patent that I put out there that describes a dongle, describes how it works, describes how the server part works, describes how you can control your TV thing, and do all this stuff, right, okay? And there was nothing out there that did it, and the question is, did Google, who owns the Chromecast stuff, did they keep that secret during their time frame, or did they publicly disclose it? Okay? If there was no public disclosure, which means including telling the patent office about it, then I would then get that patent. Okay? Even though they thought of it first, but they didn't disclose it, under the new rule, I would then get that patent. The odds on that are pretty slim. They probably, borrowed it from some company they bought, and they probably did something publicly some other time. But
So the old rule was basically trade secret trumps patent law. And you can discover something first, keep it a trade secret, and when somebody else discovers it, you can then preempt them. That was the old law, right?
yeah, go ahead and answer that kind of.
Not quite. There's a part of the law that says if this other person who didn't file first invented it first and did not abandon, suppress, or conceal it, then they can trump the first to file. But yeah, it's like if you You know, it's like, and it was to dissuade people from, it's like, oh, I'll, you know, keep it a trade secret, and it's like, well, okay, you know, I just let a disgruntled employee go, and he's probably gonna tell everybody, so now I'll file for a patent, and, you know, the government just didn't want people to do it, so yeah, you have to, you know, not abandon, suppress, or conceal an invention after you make it to have those kind of rights under the old law.
So the new law is much easier at least to comprehend, because you can just say, hey, they didn't have it, I filed first, I got it, they're claiming they thought of it, but they didn't file, and it was within a year. You have this whole year thing that happens. The other rule, oh, that's really important. So this prior art thing can also kill you on your own stuff, by the way. I got killed on that a bunch of years ago. I had this really cool idea for doing data searches. It occurred to me that if you had a string of data, you know, like let's say, you know, just continuous data string of, let's say, letters and numbers, okay? Just continuous letters and numbers. The question is, how do you search that efficiently, given you can't pre-process it, okay? So an example, I have a giant text full of millions and millions of characters, full of you know, words and things, and I'm looking for the word Fred, right, in that text, okay? If I can't pre-process this huge giant thing, what's the most efficient way to find the word Fred? And of course, the way it's almost always done, you say, is the first character an F? No, it's not. Is the second character an F? No, it's not. Okay. Third character an F? Yes. Okay. Is the next character an R? No. Is it an F? Right? You know, that's how you do it, right? That's how everyone does it. That's how it's done in the microcode. That's how it's always been done for years and years. And it occurred to me one day, this is back in the early 80s when I wasn't savvy about patent stuff and everything, and it occurred to me that what if I didn't do it that way? What if I just said, find an F, find an R, find an E, find a D, just in that sequence, go back 4 and see if it's Fred, right? That cuts down all those searches, really simple, right? So we embodied it. We actually put it into one of our products. We never